Organization estimates that there are 1.5 million irregular migrant workers in the country, mostly from Africa and Asia. Significant efforts are underway to facilitate the return of these stranded migrants to their home countries. UNHCR has appealed to all neighboring governments in North Africa and Europe to maintain open land, air, and sea borders for people fleeing the country. As I told the Security Council last week, it is essential that all those seeking to live in Libya be allowed to do so without discrimination and irrespective of their nationality. All international UN staff were evacuated 2 days ago. Our operations will continue from a secondary location, posing a major challenge to the coordination of international humanitarian assistance. In these difficult and unpredictable circumstances, it is critical that the international community remain united. In Washington yesterday, I held in-depth consultations with President Obama of the United States, and we'll have similar conversations with other world and regional leaders over the coming days. Our collective challenge will be to provide real protection for the people of Libya, first, to halt the violence, and second, to deal with the growing humanitarian emergency. The arms embargo, travel ban, and asset freeze imposed by the Security Council Resolution 1970 must be swiftly and effectively enforced. We need concrete action on the ground to provide humanitarian and medical assistance. Time is of the essence. Thousands of lives are at stake. In the days ahead, UN assessment teams will deploy to organize our humanitarian response, working on the ground where they can in the eastern and western regions of Libya. In the coming days, I will also bring together the heads of UN humanitarian agencies and programs, as well as other international and regional groups, including in particular League of Arab States, the African Union, the Organization of Islamic Conference. As I say, our most immediate priority must be providing urgent humanitarian relief, food, water, sanitation, and shelter to the thousands of both sides of the Tunisian and Egyptian borders. We must also find ways to expedite the return home of the many guest workers and foreign nationals who find themselves stranded and vulnerable. Within the week, I am planning to appoint a special envoy who will work closely with the regional governments and the international community to coordinate our rapid and effective response. From the beginning of the crisis, I have called on the Libyan leadership to hear and heed our strong collective call to end the violence and to respect human rights and the legitimate aspirations of the Libyan people. The transition to a new democratic system of governance should start now. Excellencies, the winds of change are sweeping the Middle East and North Africa. From Tunisia to Egypt, Bahrain to Yemen, and beyond, the region's people are demanding new rights and new freedoms. The international community must stand firm. The UN Charter is very clear. It is our collective duty to stand for human rights, social progress, and better standards of life in larger freedom. Equally important, for much of their history, the societies of this region have been victim to outside interference in their daily lives and culture. Today, as they strive to create the new future change, it is imperative that the international community recognize that change must come from within. Above all, this means local ownership and local leadership consistent with popular aspirations for dignity and justice. In this great and noble quest, the United Nations stands ready to assist in every way possible, should the people of the region and their government request our help. Beyond immediate humanitarian needs, this could take many forms, from technical support in organizing elections to drafting new constitutions. And let us remember that ultimately, the answer to many of the region's most pressing challenges is economic and social development. This is where the United Nations and its international partners can help most of all in education, women's empowerment, social and economic advancement, job creation, and youth opportunities. My Undersecretary General for Political Affairs, Mr. Pasco, was in Egypt last weekend and conveyed this message to the authorities and the various stakeholders he met. The same is true in Tunisia, to which I have sent a mission this week to explore the possible assistance that the UN could provide. In my talks with the region's leaders in every country, I have consistently urged restraint, open, and inclusive dialogue, and above all, respect for the people's aspirations in their fullest expression. Thank you very much.
Well, pretty soon there will be a vote at the UN General Assembly on whether or not, excuse me, to expel Libya from the UN Human Rights Council. As a prelude to that, we hear from the UN Secretary General, who says, with regard to Libya, those who commit crimes will be punished, and that the reports from the ground, as he put it, were sobering. He said Gaddafi is tightening his grip in the west of Libya and deploying forces close to the Tunisian border. Scott Heidler listening to that with me. He's our man at the United Nations. If you want to pick out the main points of what Ban Ki-moon said, what would they be?
Yeah, definitely what you said, David. You know, what's going on still now in Libya, the human rights violations continuing, the refugees flowing across the borders to the east and west, east to Egypt, west to Tunisia, and he's saying that the humanitarian response is critical at this stage. Over 100,000 refugees have fled from Libya, so it's critical that they get the assistance they need, the medical assistance they need, the shelter they need, the food they need. That was critical, and that is obviously a very important part of the United Nations response and action in the situation in Libya. And also, he said he was appointing a special envoy, so that's definitely a step further down the line for the United Nations to take, that he's going to have a point person in dealing with the situation in Libya. And also, there was a line in there that I thought that it was broader about the region, what's been going on in the region. I thought that was quite interesting. He said, the winds of change are sweeping the Middle East and North Africa. From Tunisia to Egypt, Bahrain to Yemen and beyond, the region's people are demanding new rights and new freedoms. The international community must stand firm. And his words in this speech were very firm against the Libyan government and what the United Nations role should be. And right now it is helping those who are fleeing Egypt and helping to end the violence in that country. David.
Yeah, he talked about more than 1,000 dead and said, as far as he was aware, because it's difficult to get information out of there, it was the same